right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. There'll probably be a bunch of people that join us after this. But anyways, appreciate you guys joining us. If you haven't been to any of our events before, we used to do them live, and then I moved to Las Vegas, and we still do some live events, but I like to do virtual events because I have people all over that I connect with, so it's easier that way. So today we're going to talk about SBA financing. All the benefits you can get with SBA financing, like buying franchises and buying existing businesses, starting businesses, buying self-storage facilities, pretty much you name it, as long as it's like a business without any. There's certain ineligible businesses, but we're going to take a deep dive into some SBA financing and what you can do and open up your mind, hopefully, or maybe some of you already own businesses. You can also do business expansion financing. So if you're a business owner, you've owned a business and you want to buy a building, you could potentially buy the building that you want to move into. So there's a lot of uses for it. If you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat. Doesn't look like there's a Q&A in this one. But anyways, we have a couple of events coming up. Wednesday, February 8th. Business growth hacks with my marketing guy, Bill Davis. I've worked with Bill for over 10 years, and he's really good at marketing. So if anybody's interested in learning how to be found on top of Google search, or if you're interested in ranking your videos in YouTube or writing blog content, anything like that, that's what Bill helps me do. And we're pretty good at it. And he's been an internet marketer for like the last 20 years. So he's pretty savvy in all things online marketing. So that is coming. Sorry, I have to let some people in. I should have done it so they could just join. But that's February 8th. It's going to be online again. Business growth hacking. And then on Wednesday, February 15th, we have my friend Derek, and Derek's an ADU specialist, how to plan, design, finance, and build affordable ADUs. And then on, that's February 15th. And then on March 15th, we have longtime guest of our Real Estate Investor Association, Al Williamson. He's going to talk on midterm rentals. So he does a lot of corporate rentals. So traveling nurses and things like that. So if you're interested in furnished corporate rentals, he's a good person to listen to. A lot of people that are doing short-term rentals that maybe they have restrictions on occupancy, that they need 30-day stays and longer, are now transitioning over into midterm rentals. So it's going to be a great topic. That's the March 15th. And then hopefully in April, we do a live event. If any of you have been to our live events, we do something called REI Bar Camp. That'll probably most likely be in San Ramon. And it's really like we call it an unconference. And we have different breakout sessions and different people leading conversations about all sorts of things. A couple other things. You guys can go to thrivereia.com. I'll put these in the chat if you want to stay up to date. I'm going to put my link to the meetup group. You guys should definitely, if you're not opted into the meetup group, you should. We won't try to spam you with too many emails. So anyways, agenda. There we go. Sorry, I'm letting people in. Agenda, welcome, upcoming events. We already touched on that. We're going to talk about what we're covering today. We're going to talk about SBA financing, all facets of it. We're going to do a Q&A. Maybe a little networking, which might be a little bit more difficult because I don't know how to do the rooms, and then a close. So that's really just a short agenda here. We already talked about the events. Bill Davis's event, which is Business Growth Hacks, isn't on here, but we have the ADU guy. It's Derek Sherrell. We got Al Williamson coming up. And so those will be really good events as well. So we'll get started here on the slides. So opportunities abound, business acquisition. So there's thousands and thousands, if not millions, of baby boomers that own businesses that don't have succession plans. So it's a great opportunity right now. A lot of my real estate investor buddies kind of transitioned into looking to acquire businesses. And so that's one of the good uses of the SBA program. So there's about 13, from what we found, there's about 13 million boomers that own small businesses in the U.S. And so most of them don't have a succession plan, meaning they're either going to close them down or maybe somebody can come in and buy these type of businesses, right? This could be a HVAC company. It could be really any type of business, really. A lot of roofing companies, IT companies, restaurants. So there's a huge opportunity in the space for just business acquisition. So that's kind of what this slide talks about. Then we have franchise and business acquisition financing. So many people use SBA financing to start a franchise concept. Obviously, you can acquire an existing business or start a business from scratch. There's acquisitions. There's all sorts of financing you can do other than SBA. We're going to touch on some of that today as well. And so ways to finance a franchise or a business acquisition. So on franchise financing, a lot of franchises that are like brick and mortar, they sometimes use equipment financing. Equipment financing companies will actually, they'll finance all the equipment and they'll do some of the build out of the, like if you're putting, let's just say it's a franchise concept with a smoothie store, you can get equipment financing. You can get equipment financing that actually gives you finances the equipment and the build out. Obviously the SBA 7A and the SBA 504. And then there's something called a Rob's Rollover. So many people have retirement accounts from previous employers and they're not really making great returns on it. Well, there's the Rob's Rollover. You can actually roll this over into a 401k, a self-directed 401k, and you can actually use that funding to fund your business, or that could fund the equity injection for the down payment of the SBA financing. So a lot of times we sometimes partners different funding strategies. Obviously, trying to buy a business, there's always unsecured term loans. There's equity in your house that you can use to finance some of this. Equipment financing is really, there's many financing companies that do this. There's literally, you can do $20, $30 million equipment finance deals. This is just another strategy depending on the business that you're looking at acquiring. And so really the meat and potatoes of today is the SBA 7A and the 504. So the SBA 7A is for business acquisition. So the 7A is more of a flexible loan. The 504 is really just, remember the SBA 504 is for either real estate or heavy equipment. Okay, the SBA 7A loan, it's more versatile. You can do business acquisition with no hard assets. So for an example, let's just say you were trying to acquire a property management company, an existing business that's been run, a property management company's been around for 30 years, but it doesn't own any real estate. With the SBA 7A, you can get an acquisition financing to acquire that business. Let's say that business was on sale. They wanted to sell it for $2 million. You can get up to 90% financing with the SBA 7A program to acquire that business. So let's just say that business was doing $900,000 a year in revenue. So basically for SBA, I kind of want to go back. SBA does not make the loans. They guarantee a portion of loans. So there's many banks and credit unions and non-bank SBA lenders. And so we work with like PLP lenders. They're direct lenders for the SBA program. SBA guarantees a portion of the loan. That's why banks like to do these type of loans, because one, it's very lucrative for them, and two, is a big portion of that loan is being guaranteed by the government. So that's why SBA loans they'll lend you more than a normal loan will, right? They'll lend you 90% of the total cost, whereas most banks would never do that. They'd be at 60 or 70% if they would even make the loan. So SBA has been around for years and years and years, and it was really designed to help small business owners, right? And so us as entrepreneurs out there, we want to be able to kind of see opportunities and take advantage of opportunities that present themselves and learn how to structure these deals. So let's just go to this. We're using a property management company. as an acquisition, and let's just use $1 million, that they want $1 million for this business. If the cash flow is there from the existing business, so whenever you're looking to acquire a business, you always need 3 years of business tax returns from the seller. It's a requirement of SBA guidelines. We have to look at the cash flow from the existing business, right? So you get 3 years of tax returns from the selling business, and you get a year-to-date interim statement. Okay, that's what we need from the seller. We know the purchase price, and then from you, what's required from you, the borrower or the sponsor, as we call it in commercial. So one is you have to have relatively good credit, right? You have to have 680 or better credit scores typically. We always ask for a resume or bio. So usually if you're buying some kind of business, it's good to have some entrepreneurial experience. And so we just link that together. We need 3 years of financials for yourself. And then if you own other companies, we need affiliate tax returns for any businesses you own. So that's where it gets a little tedious if you own a lot of entities and business LLCs. And we need a debt schedule and a Form 413, which is a financial statement. That's all we really need to size up an SBA deal. So where can you get really creative on this deal? So you're buying this property management company. You can ask the seller to do a seller carryback. And so if you want to kind of leverage, sorry, I got somebody in the waiting room. If you want to leverage the most, you can do some seller financing in it too. So like I said before, you have to come in with 10% equity injection on buying an existing business acquisition, assuming the cash flow from the business you're buying is there to support your new loan. But there's no reason you can't have the seller carry back 5%. And when they carry back on 5%, that's like what we call, just imagine that we only have 5% plus a little bit of reserves. We're really trying to leverage. If the seller is willing to put that 5% on standby, meaning he won't or she won't get payments for the term of the loan, then that counts as 5% of your equity injection. And so then you only have to come in with 5%. Anyways, now you need 5%. That 5% can't be borrowed money. Okay, it can be, but let's just say I'm buying this. Now the seller is willing to put 5% on standby. I need $50,000 plus, right? So I don't necessarily want to use the 50 grand I have in my account. I can get a family member to gift me those funds, or I can go out to my investor network, and maybe an investor friend of mine wants to be a part owner. They can't lend the money, but they can own less than 20%, and they don't have to go on the loan, and nor do they have to guarantee the loan. Okay, so you can get really creative on the way you structure these SBA deals. Now, I will tell you on the SBA 7A loan, the guidelines do state that if there's a collateral shortfall, they will look for additional collateral. So if you have a bunch of rental properties with equity in it, if you're going for the 7A and there's a collateral shortfall, they could, put a secondary lien on your primary residence or rental property. So you got to be aware of that. So the 7A is very versatile. Now let's talk real quick about rent replacement. Let's just say you own a property management company, and you want to buy a building. I find a building down the street. It's for sale for $2 million. I have great cash flow. I've been in business for 15 years with my property management business. You can get up to 100% financing on a rent replacement deal. So I can get up to 100% financing to finance this building and the improvements that I do to the building potentially, if I'm doing what we call a rent replacement. Now, when you're part of the caveat of this is that I need to occupy for SBA, I need to occupy at least 51% of the space. Okay. Now, if we're doing new construction, you have to occupy at least 60%. And like if I'm building a building, I want to take my property management company, but I'm going to build a building. I need to occupy 60% of the space. Okay. And within the first 10 years, I need to occupy 80%. Okay. So that's different on the new construction. I'm working on a deal right now, and the gentleman bought a mixed use property. It's pretty cool. I loved what he did. He bought a mixed use property a couple years back for, I don't know, it was maybe 750 or 800,000. He got a SBA 7A loan, and he occupies the downstairs. He has a business downstairs, and then upstairs there was 2 residential units. He ended up making one of the units bigger, and then the other one he just finished a remodel on it, and he's Airbnb-ing that. Okay, now for qualifying guidelines, we can't use the rental income, but it's cool what you can do, right? Like if you wanted to move your business, and then so basically so now that he's up and running with his short-term rental, now that he's up and running with the short-term rental, the cash flow from that will probably pay the majority of his debt on his, for his business loan. So anyways, right now what we're doing is we're refinancing him into a conventional loan from a SBA 7A loan. Anyway, SBA 504 structure. So let's just say you're buying a self-storage facility. This is what the structure is. So the SBA 7A is just one loan. The 504 is 2 loans, okay? So let's just say you're buying $1 million property for let's just call it a self-storage facility. There's 2 loans, right? There's 50%, which is your senior loan. There's 40%, which is the SBA guaranteed piece. And then there's 10% equity injection. So why would you want an SBA 504? Because it's fixed rate. It's long-term debt, fixed rate. And so that's why you might want to do, every scenario is different. So sometimes it makes more sense to do a 7A even with the real estate because it's got a shorter prepayment penalty. But the 504, hold on, I'm just letting people in. Okay. So the 504 is basically the senior debt is 50% of the total project cost. The junior debt is 40% of the total project cost. You come in with 10%. The difference on the 504, it's just real estate or heavy equipment type of financing. You can't build in working capital and things like that into the loan like you can the 7A. So I want to go back to the 7A real quick. So let's go back to the property management business that you want to acquire. So they're selling it for $2 million, right? But I want to show you what else is really cool. We already talked about the standby, how you can get the seller to put 5% on standby. So you only have to come in with 5% hypothetically. Well, now I want to talk to you about some other cool stuff, which I didn't add in there. So so you got you're buying this property management business for $2 million. You have staff, you have employees. Maybe you need to buy some additional office equipment. Well, you can, based on the cash flow within this loan. So we're gonna get 90% financing total project cost. That's what we're shooting for. So we can also build in working capital in our loan. So potentially we can get $150,000 of working capital. We can get the first couple months of salaries for the employees that are there, right? So you can actually build in the SBA loans, you can build in the extra capital, because you don't want to come into the business and be like, you just put all your money into the equity injection, right? You want to have the cushion. So assuming the cash flow from the existing business you're buying is sufficient, we can build in working capital, we build in the SBA fees. That ends up being your total project cost, right? And then we're getting the seller to leave 5% equity in the deal. It's gonna accrue interest, but it's a 10-year term. So a business acquisition is 10-year term, okay? If it's a business acquisition with real estate, and the real estate is 51% or more of the total purchase price, then it could be up to 25-year amortization. So if it's just business acquisition, no real estate, it's 10-year term. There's no prepayment penalty on a business acquisition with no real estate. There's only a prepayment penalty on an SBA 7A if the term is longer than 10 years. So basically if there's real estate. So what happens if the real estate is only 40% and the business, because you're breaking it up, right? The business has value and the real estate has value. So they'll do it like, typically they'll do a blended amortization. So if the business value is more than the real estate, you might get a 14 or 16 year or 17-year term. But anything over 15 years, you're going to have a 3-year prepayment penalty. It's usually a 5% penalty the first year, 3% the next year, and 1% the next year. But the advantage, like let's just say we're looking at a real estate owner occupied type of deal for SBA. Well, hey Beau, why don't I go with the 504? Because the 504 has a 10-year prepayment penalty. So even if I'm doing 7A, an SBA 7A, that might be more advantageous, right? Because I'm gonna, like this gentleman I was talking about where he's runs his business downstairs, it's mixed use upstairs. His property's appreciated like 200,000. So it's only been like actually less than 3 years, but he could refinance out and go into a conventional loan now. You can also do like value add plays, right? Like you're creating a lot of value in this property, in this business that you own. And so some people don't want to be stuck in a 10-year prepayment penalty. So that's another reason we look at, when I have conversations, I say, okay, well, I understand you want the fixed rate, but let's look at the overall strategy. You can also do a 504 loan with a companion 7A for working capital, because the 504 loan you can't build in any of the working capital or anything. It's all just based on the hard asset. Versus the 7A it could be completely blue sky, no assets, just business value. So there's a big difference. And so if anybody has any questions on like what can be financed, now if you're starting a business, this is different. If you're starting a business, SBA guidelines say you can potentially get up to 90% financing. Most banks, does everybody know what overlay is? Like banks have what we call overlays. Like even though the guidelines say for an FHA owner occupied house, you can get this, the banks sometimes scrutinize. It's the same thing with SBA financing. But you can get on a franchise, right? Like I'm going to start a gym. Let's call it a Crunch gym or a Planet Fitness gym. That's a startup. And even though they have a franchise is a recipe, a blueprint of typically of success, although there's a lot of franchises that fail. Most banks might say, hey, I'll do this deal, but I'm only going to do 85% of the costs. Well, I call the other bank and the other bank will do 90%. So essentially what I do in this whole SBA is I'm like the middle person, and I quarterback the deal. So I figure out, how do we achieve what your goal is? And if your goal is 90% financing on this Planet Fitness gym, I'm going to find the bank that I work with that will finance 90%. So on franchise financing, most banks will overlay. I had a recent gentleman that was trying to buy a food restaurant, a franchise. It's one of those microbreweries with restaurants. They only have 16 units, so it's a startup franchise, right? Like, because some franchise have 1,000 units. 16 they're still getting going. So a lot of banks will scrutinize that. But they had submitted a loan with a national bank, and they wanted to come in with 15% of the total cost, because they're buying real estate and they're buying the franchise, and they're got to build out the building. They're buying a building, and it happens to have 4 residential condos above, right? But they're going to occupy with the restaurant over 51% of the space, so it's eligible there. The franchise is on the directory. So there's a directory where the SBA they don't like approve the franchise, meaning like they don't say this franchise is great. They just say this franchise is eligible for SBA financing. So this franchise concept's on the directory. But when they took it to the bank without me involved, the bank said, oh, we're only going to do 80% financing, right? And that's a big difference on a $3 million deal, having to come in with an extra 5 or 10%. So I'm helping them navigate it so they can only come in with the 15% that they were originally wanted to, right? So like when you're doing a restaurant, banks, like there's certain industries that the banks will scrutinize more. Like if you don't have any restaurant experience and you're starting like a full-blown restaurant, it's a little bit tougher versus like you're buying a self-storage facility, right? Because that's a little bit easier. Like, so when we're trying to like paint the picture, it's good that we get a resume from the borrower, like, hey, this is my experience, like to show that there's some entrepreneurial business ownership experience will really help. Same thing with hospitality. A lot of people now are coming to me, they've run some successful, this will probably relate to people here, that they run short-term rentals. And they're like, hey, I want to buy this motel. It's in like this vacation area, and I want to like, put it on Airbnb and VRBO um and um and so now we can show that they have 3 single family homes that they run as Airbnbs, right? They have experience. So we can correlate that versus like if you were trying to buy a full-fledged hotel and you didn't have any hospitality. So we just have to paint the picture. And you can get partners that own less than 20% and they don't have to go on the loan. Now remember, SBA loans, if you own greater than 20%, you're signing a personal guarantee. If there's a collateral shortfall, they're going to look for additional collateral, right? Some people don't mind as long as they get the deal done. They don't mind if SBA's got a second lien on a primary residence or whatever, but you just need to be aware of these situations. Somebody put in chat, let's see here, for SBA loan, for the SBA loan, where did the gentleman buy the mixed-use loan? Was the title in the name of the LLC or the name of the person? So the name, typically what most people do, okay, so remember this is a business, right? So you have a holding company that holds the vesting of the just the real estate, and then you usually have a operating company that runs the business. And that's what he did. But remember, you're signing as a personal guarantor, no matter what the entity structure is. So, but the loan is made typically to the business, and you sign as guarantor. And then there's a holding company if real estate's involved, and so forth. Good question. Let's see here. What other? All right. I'm sorry, I'll just see if there's any questions as we're going. What if you want to start a new business? All right, Ed, great question. So, if you want to start a business, it's a little tougher. They're going to scrutinize you a little bit more because you're not buying a franchise with a proven concept or somewhat of you're not buying an existing business. So yes, you can get startup financing. So Ed, what kind of do you mind sharing what kind of business you're trying to start, or you just want to know generally? But for a business startup, you need a very good business plan, and then you need 3 years of projections. The first 12 months should be broken out by the month as far as your projections. They want to see them broken out by the month for the first 12 months. They want to see 3 years of projections. They want to see a really good business plan. There's a lot of free resources too. There's Score. All right, Ed, health consulting business. Let's see if I can find Ed. There he is. Is this him? Let's see. Ask unmute. Hey, Ed.
Hey there. Yeah, the unmute button was locked, so I was unable to talk.
Well, yeah, because we can't trust so many people. They might come on and blast their music. But anyway, this is good. I hope you guys like this. Ed, do you mind being kind of the guinea pig?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, cool. All right. So, Ed, you want to start a health consulting business? All right. Is this like, can you give me a little bit more flavor on the health consulting? Is it like dietitian type of thing, or is it?
Sure. No, it's actually basically utilizing physicians to treat patients. So basically, it's a management company where they have a relationship with different practices, and then they get the patient referrals and do all of the appointment booking and all the business operations, and then they own all of the property, the clinic, the equipment, and then the doctor just is an independent contractor, and then they treat the patients essentially. So it's a management service agreement is what it's called in the industry.
Okay, so your company is basically kind of like a staffing for like doctors
Yes,
and
for
so
the
forth.
administrative side, not hiring the medical staff. So the doctors, they're the only ones who can hire the medical staff or
Uh-huh.
other doctors. So all the administrative part, and then so basically everybody who's in the front office.
Okay. So this is a unique situation. It probably can be. So really, you're a management service company,
Mhm.
and so the use of your funds would be to hire staff and get the office up and running for this management service company.
Correct, and advertising to get the patient referrals.
And what kind of experience do you have prior to this startup? Are you
Uh,
W-2'd?
So I've been doing this with another partner since March, and it was working out. And then things kind of got sour where they weren't participating. So I want to just break off and do my own thing and just basically start up a new corporation business just under my own ownership, 100% owner.
Okay, so how long were you doing it with that partner? Sorry, was it only
Since March of last year.
okay? So what were you doing before that?
Before that, I was a scientist, and then I also worked in automotive sales. So yeah, I just finished my MBA. So this is kind of the first foray after school.
Okay, got it, got it, got it. Are you a homeowner?
No, I'm not. I rent.
Okay, you rent. Good credit though.
Yes.
Good credit. Okay. Um, yeah. Do you have a business plan?
Yes, I do.
So what I would do is give me a copy of your business plan. Do you have kind of a breakout of sources and uses of like how much you're looking for and what the money would be used for?
Yes, I do, and it's scalable. So the first thing can just be very minimum, where you're just doing the basics to cover staff and marketing needs, and just I have already a lot of the supplies, which is just the computer and phone lines, paying out of my own pocket. So there's not too much cost except for the staffing and marketing budget. And then beyond that, I would like to actually purchase a commercial building to be able to operate out of, and basically borrow the 10% from my parents, depending on what the amount is. So yeah, so it's pretty simple, and the model has been tested out for me. It works, and it's good income since I had almost a year to see how profitable it was and prove the business model.
So is your initial ask under 150,000?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. So it's more of like a micro loan. I think it's very doable. Um, you'd still have to come in with a certain amount of the total project cost. But I do think it would be feasible. So 3 years of projections broken out, the first 12 months broken out by the month. I have a template if you want, and the business plan. I could run it by a couple of the banks I work with and that do the kind of the smaller loans and see if they would be, how we could position this to make it work. And it's definitely sounds doable, good credit and so forth. And so there's definitely options there. You're probably looking at like 85%, like where you'd have to come in with 15% of the costs and so forth. But it definitely could be a possibility. It sounds like you already have a year of experience. You just finished your master's degree. So I would say this could definitely be like a smaller loan, 100 to 150,000. Very good. All
Thank you.
right. Thanks for being a guinea pig. Lori asks, and we got to get Lori on this on our one night, because Lori owns a lot of real estate and she's like really good. But anyways, Lori asks, what are the typical terms? How do these? So typical terms on a business acquisition where it's just a straight business deal, no real estate involved. It's a 10-year term. If there's real estate involved, and real estate, it makes up 51% or more of the value of the total purchase price, then it's a 25-year amortized loan. And on Justin asks, Hi, Beau. I know you touched a little on Airbnb. Is how maybe what may be additional guidelines for somebody who want to use SBA loans for STRs, which is short-term rentals. So really, you can't, at least as of right now, you can't like potentially you could buy a business that's a professional management company that manages STRs that has a portfolio of real estate. That would probably work. But if you're just trying to like get financing for, well, first of all, you wouldn't want to just finance a residential property with SBA financing because you could get much better terms getting a residential loan. But let's just say you you find a mixed use property or a cabin type of property. Let's say it's up in the mountains somewhere in Lake Tahoe, and it's like a commercially zoned property, and there's 10 cabins, and it's been running as a business. You can definitely get SBA financing if you qualify. So if it's commercially zoned and it's run as a business. So what does being run as a business mean? It can't be mom and pop where there's two owners and they don't have like a business entity. They really need you need to be buying a business, right? So if you're buying an existing business that's run like a business, then potentially SBA could work on those type of STR properties. If you were building a lodge like in a ski resort, like a giant, you could potentially get SBA financing for, right? It's what's the zoning of the property, and like that kind of makes it. I know SBA loans that have been done where it's like a mixed use property and they live on top and the downstairs is their office, and so sometimes that works. Into really like what's the zoning of the property? If it's a residential property, it's not going to work. But other than that, if you're buying an existing like resort and it's got 10 or 15 cabins on it, you can potentially get SBA financing for that. Just like a boutique motel, right? But it can't be like just one residential property. Now, if it was like a legal bed and breakfast, like one of those giant 5,000 square feet, and it's run as a bed and breakfast, you can get SBA financing for that. I hope that helps. But really, there's a couple forms you need, and you got to paint the picture of what you're trying to do. Like if you're buying an existing business, just know you need 3 years of tax returns from that business that you're buying and a year to date, because that's what the underwriters go off. They spread the tax returns, and they're looking for what cash flow is there, and will that cash flow support the new loan. Now, sometimes the property is misrun, and that's okay. You can do a projection-based loan, meaning, hey, we're buying this RV park. In the RV park, the owners lives across the country and is not managing it. If you're a strong borrower, you can get SBA financing to acquire the property and also the CapEx, almost like a rehab loan, right? But at the end of the day, it comes down to like you as well, right? Like what's your strength? This is a weaker property. The cash flow, the debt service coverage ratio is low. It's not cash flowing great because it's been mismanaged. We need to give a good plan, and this is what we're going to do. This is why it's not working. This is our plan. Here's our business plan. Here's our projections. And yes, you can get a projection-based loan for something that's been mismanaged, like an RV park, even self-storage, right? So a lot of times people will use bridge financing instead, but SBA is viable for that kind of stuff. Okay, let me see if I can go back to the slides here. So we're going to just brief on this. This is the 401k rollover. So if you had some retirement accounts, there's certain retirement accounts that are eligible. You can't be currently working with this employer. It's got to be like a previous retirement account, like a 401k, some IRS, some kiosks, and those type of retirements are sometimes eligible, and you can actually roll those in. There's like a custodian, right? Just kind of like a self-directed IRA. But the cool thing is that you can then roll this into a standalone 401k, self-directed, and then you could take that cash. Let's say you had $300,000. You can use that cash to go buy a business and use all that cash, and you can run the business and certain rules. But this is just like another way that you can oops, let me let these people in. This is another way where you can look to, now since this isn't a loan, here I just wanted to point this out. Since this isn't a loan, remember you can't use borrowed money typically for the equity injection on SBA, but you can use this money as the equity injection because it's not borrowed money. So this is called a Rob's rollover. I work with a custodian. I could definitely refer you, and they can look at your retirement vehicles and let you know if any of those vehicles would potentially qualify. So basically, a Rob's plan, they start a corporation, and that's the basic structure. Then that corporation could potentially lend money into the deal. That corporation could buy the business and so forth. I actually did a podcast, and I interviewed somebody from a custodian, and it was pretty interesting. So the other thing people do sometimes to buy a business, and they don't want to go SBA, they do unsecured term loans. So if you have good credit, maybe you have a W-2 job right now, you can potentially get unsecured term loan based on your credit and your cash flow. So it's a no doc unsecured loan. I shouldn't say it's a no doc. They're gonna ask for proof of employment. But if your goal is to buy a business or start a franchise or something like that, and maybe you couldn't go the SBA route, this is another vehicle or opportunity on an unsecured term loan. And then obviously HELOCs, we don't really need to touch on that. I mean, if you have a lot of equity, you can tap into it and use it for your business. A lot of people don't want to because they want to keep their equity for their personal uses and not tap into the business. So anyways, there's like multiple funding options. There's a lot of things you can do with SBA financing. Obviously, I wrote a book. It's not a real book. It's like an ebook. I wouldn't say it's only probably 25 pages or something. But if you go to SBA loans .blog and then the SBA book, I should probably put it in the chat. You can get it, and it's going to go over a lot of like what you can and can't do, what's eligible, what's not. You can go to Book with Beau if you want to book a call with me as well. I'm happy to discuss any type of financing that you might have. And I do bridge financing, fix and flip portfolios, all this stuff. Casey asked a question. All right. Any commentary on buying recession-resistant company? I was thinking HVAC or grocery. Things that are non-discretionary. Any other ideas for non-discretionary companies? Well, yeah, I mean, so I don't know. I follow a bunch of people online in the business acquisition space. I got really interested in business acquisition. I looked at a bunch of franchises. Actually, I'm having my partner Amanda. She's going to do a series. She is like she's taught me a lot about franchise acquisition. She's a franchise consultant, so I'm going to have her come in and talk about the franchises that she's helping her clients get into. I think we're going to do it in a couple series because I started looking at all different. I interviewed a guy on my podcast, and he was doing some of the what's it called, acai bowls places, and he would raise money and buy, and he's on his like 10th acquisition of this franchise. It looks a great model, and he puts the employees in place and stuff. So but for an existing business, so we're in a recession, and maybe they're hedging inflation, but who knows, right? So like Casey, I guess what I'm seeing a lot of people do is buying boring businesses, right? Like you hear that Cody Sanchez online. She always talks about buying boring businesses. And I think that there's a great opportunity to buy boring businesses. There's all these baby boomers that like their kids don't want to work in the business, right? Like, and they don't have any other plan. And so they have to list it with a broker. So the key is can you get to those people before they're listed? I would say, HVAC businesses, like, yeah, I'm here in Vegas. Like you need HVAC businesses, you need plumbing companies, you need all these businesses. And so I think there's a tremendous opportunity. And then you couple that with SBA financing, right? You're getting 90% financing ideally. You're getting the seller to carry back some because maybe the seller doesn't want to take a hit and pay heavy tax burden that year, right? Maybe they'll do a bigger seller carry, give you a little bit of break on the rate, interest rate, and then you're coming in with just a little bit of equity. And maybe you get a partner and say, hey, I'm going to run the business. You can own 19% of the company. You come in with the 100 grand or 200 grand needed. I'll put up 50. And now you're controlling a business that's spitting off a lot of cash flow. Now, obviously you have to run the business and you can't run it into the ground, but I'm seeing a lot of businesses where like they've been in business for 30 years, they're cash cows, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity. It makes me I'm definitely interested in looking more at business acquisition. I'm definitely interested in the franchise concept. I mean, if you drive around anywhere, right, there's some kind of franchise. So if you go, so I go and get my dog stuff at, I think the supply store is called Pet Supplies. It's a franchise. The pet industry is like it's like $100 billion industry. It's like something crazy, right? And all these little pet stores are franchises, pet grooming. So there's tremendous opportunities. That's what got me excited about SBA the most, is like, wow, like this is cool. I mean, where else can you get super high leverage financing and get a business that's either, they've got 1,000 of these units out there and they're all making money, or you're buying an existing business and it's already spitting off cash flow. So I'm in a mastermind group, Casey, and they have a tribe within the group, and in that tribe, all those guys are doing is looking at businesses every day to acquire. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity. Grocery stores too could be definitely eligible for SBA financing. So there's definitely a lot of uses. That's really what I wanted to cover tonight in this podcast. Sorry. But it's really, I think we covered the majority of it. SBA is very versatile. If you have a scenario, I'm happy you can go to bookwithbeau.com. I'll sit with you for 20 or 30 minutes and go over the scenario with you. But it's pretty easy for me now. So I'm a member of NAGLE, which is the National Association of Government Guaranteed Lenders. So I network with all like the banks, and banks are hungry for SBA financing. Ever since like PPP and the EIDL loans came around, everybody like thinks SBA is free money because a lot of people got PPP. But anyway, SBA 7A, the rates are tied to Wall Street Journal Prime. I don't know what that is. It's either 7.25, 7.5, plus a margin, right? So your fully indexed rate sucks right now. But the plan would be to buy the business, get it cash flowing. Rates will come back down, but then you can go into some kind of conventional financing eventually. And if there's a real estate component of it, that makes the deal even stronger. So certain banks only do SBA deals when there's real estate involved. Certain banks, like I work with certain bankers that all they want to do is, their real specialty is just acquisition, where there's no real estate, just business acquisition. Some businesses like the franchise concepts. So it really just depends on you. I think over the next couple of months, as I bring in Amanda, who can talk about franchising, like how to evaluate concepts. I've been through her training, actually. She trained me on it, and it was really good. And just learning, like everybody goes in and thinks they want to buy like a quick service, a QSR, quick service restaurant, right? But the reality of it is there's a ton of home-based business concepts that are like cash cow businesses that cost way less to start, right? And there's less employees and all that stuff. So it kind of depends on like what you want to do. Because I've looked at a lot of different businesses, and I mean, there's definitely ways to do it, and I think that's what's exciting about it. I think, all in all, continue to buy your real estate, but wouldn't it be great to own businesses as well? Or wouldn't it be great to quit your W-2 job and have your own business? I think we're seeing, like during COVID, that number, like it skyrocketed. It absolutely skyrocketed how many people like just wanted to start their own thing. So that's where the franchise concept is simple, I think, and a lot of people go that route, because there's like a support structure versus like you go and buy an HVAC company and you don't really have experience in the niche, running like an HVAC company, versus like starting a smoothie company or like a healthcare company where you do you schedule assisted caregivers to go do assisted living activities. I mean, there's all like assisted living, there's pet grooming, there's all these different concepts. There's literally thousands of franchises out there. And, you know, not all of them are great. A lot of them have, you know, lawsuits, and a lot of them have a lot closing down. So when Amanda comes and talks, she's going to talk about like the steps, the processes, what kind of due diligence do you do when you're looking at franchises. We're going to talk about the FDD, which is a franchise disclosure document. There's like 23 items on it. So once you understand that, then you can start evaluating franchises and then figure out. There's even like a DISC there's like a DISC profile test that when you're looking to get into the franchise, like look to evaluate franchises, a lot of the seasoned franchise consultants give you this test, right? And it basically, it kind of tells you where your strengths and weaknesses are, what kind of franchise concepts you'll align with. It's really cool how it does it. It nailed when I took the thing, the test. It's not really a test. It's just a questionnaire. It does. It aligns with like what you would be really good at and what you're probably not too good at. Because the franchisors, they know what avatar they're looking for. That, you know, let's just say they had 500 units out there. They have 500 openings. They know what kind of personalities and avatar makes a good franchisee. So it's really fascinating. And like I said, this all ties back to like SBA financing, being able to tie the financing in. Because a lot of us getting started, right? We don't have a lot of cash, so we got to be resourceful. We can use SBA, or if you're doing fix and flip loans, you get fix and flip loans at 90% of purchase and 100% of repair costs, and you get a private money partner that comes in and does some of the down payment with you. So it's just about being resourceful. And what I really love about the SBA is you can be extremely resourceful, and you be creative on the deal structure. And you can literally walk into these deals with very little money out of pocket if done right, and you're buying the right business. So that's what I really love about it. Is there any last questions? We're going to get out of here early today. Remember, Wednesday the 8th, we have my marketing guy, Bill Davis. We're going to do business growth hacking. We're going to talk about things like how to use Chat GPT, if any of you haven't heard of it yet, right? That piece of AI has gotten more users than any other software in the history of all softwares. Like, it's gotten like 2 million users in like the first 10 days. But anyways, we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about how you can use Chat GPT and AI to help you like write blogs and how to be found online, different strategies like that, Google, YouTube. That's February 8th. February 15th, this is good for anybody that's looking. We have Derek Sherrell. He's that ADU guy. I met him at a conference, and he's a retired firefighter. Actually, he's younger than me, and he's retired. But anyways, with like 7 doors, he did it systematically. He was also a contractor, but he got really good at finding properties that he can add either a detached ADU or a ADU within the footprint of the house. So he looks for houses where he can carve off a bedroom and bathroom, give it a separate entrance. He also has his own plans for doing ADU. So he knows everything ADU. He's going to be presenting on February 15th. And then March 15th, we have Al Williamson, midterm rentals, right? So everybody got into the short-term boom, right? And then now you need permits and licensing in certain states. And now like that the COVID thing is a little bit under control, maybe maybe there's a little bit of saturation in certain markets and people are scrambling, or maybe you just want a different business model. So what Al's really good at is at midterm rentals. So they call him like the landlord scientist. And what I like about him, like a couple years back, he wanted to show, like he has a little coaching program. He wanted to show his students that, hey, you can go and arbitrage. You can arbitrage these rental units. That means you're basically leasing this, you're master leasing it, and then you're making the spread from whatever your lease agreement is. And so he did that with like no money. I think he started with like $3,000. He built that to 10 grand a month. And he has a lot of money, but he did this just to show his students that anything is possible with corporate rentals. But with midterm stays, extended stays, you can get 2 to 3x what you could on a long-term rental. There's less turnover, less hassle maybe than a short-term rental. So a lot of people right now, I see them online and I finance a lot of these people's properties, and a lot of them maybe aren't getting the same results they thought they were going to get. So the midterm strategy in certain markets makes a lot of sense. So Al is a fantastic person. That's March 15th. And then I said in April, we're hoping to do a live event in San Ramon, which will be REI Bar Camp, which is an unconference. It's like a breakout sessions, and it's really just a collaborative effort. And then also, guys, if you can do me a favor and go to the meetup, make sure if you haven't joined the meetup group on meetup.com, you just join that now. A lot of the events we're going to do are virtual. I'm going to start doing some in person too, but most of them are going to be virtual. So I'm putting it in the chat. Go ahead and join this group so you get notified. You can also, what else? What is I going to share with you? If you want to book an appointment with me, you can go to bookwithbeau.com. It takes you to a calendar link for me, bookwithbeau.com. And then if you have any loan scenarios or anything, or if you're interested in franchises, I can connect you with the right people that can push you forward. What else is there? Oh, George is in the waiting room. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I really want to say. Really, just kind of give you an overview. If you go to investorfinancingpodcast.com, you can get a copy of the book. Investorfinancingpodcast.com. There's the SBA book on there. It's only like 20 pages. It's just a super easy resource just on the guidelines. If you're looking to buy an online business, yeah, okay, the business has to be domiciled in the US. SBA loans can be made to US citizens. If you're a permanent resident alien, permanent, I believe SBA's financing is good for you. There's certain business types that are ineligible, like anything with cash or lending, anything with cannabis at this time. Anything with a religious component is not eligible at this time. Like if you were starting a Catholic school, actually somebody reached out and they were building a boys' Catholic school. But since it had a religion tied to it, that was a no-no for SBA. But other than that, if it's an owner-occupied business, then most likely it's an SBA eligible. If you're looking at buying a franchise, there's a franchise directory on the SBA website, and that's the first thing I check when somebody calls and I don't know about the franchise concept. I go and look and say, okay, it's on there, and then I also look at about how many units they have. But if you want any discovery on franchises, you can always reach out. I can tell you my 2 cents on it, and we're gonna have Amanda. I got to figure out when Amanda's gonna come, but yeah, that'll be a really good one for you, just to understand. For SBA loans, does it make a difference if you already have loans with SBA? The answer is no. You can have up to $5 million in SBA proceeds, and I didn't touch on this. I'm sorry, guys. I should probably touch on this. You can have up to $5 million. You can have multiple SBA loans. If it's PPP or EIDL, disaster loans, those don't count in the 5 million portfolio. And who wants to hear a really cool thing? Let's just say you own a financial planning practice and you're building a building. And no, let's just say you have like an SBA loan, just a 7A on a building that you own the financial planning practice. But now you want to go build a building for like $12 million. Well, we can do what's called a 504 green. And we can get, if you do a 504 green, you can have up to 5.5 million as opposed to 5 on one particular project. But the cool thing is you can have an aggregate amount of $16.5 million of SBA proceeds. And that's just the second. Remember, on a 504, you got the senior debt, which is 40%, and then the junior debt is 40. So that's like 40 million in buying power. And that 7A loan that this financial planner has, that doesn't even count in the aggregate. And to qualify for the 504 green, if you're buying an existing building, all we have to do, we send out an engineer. Engineer says, okay, Beau, we got to add some LED lightings, and you're going to reduce energy by 10%, and that qualifies for the green program. Now I move into the building. 2 years later, I want to buy a bigger building. I can keep that SBA loan. I can do another build out of another building, and I can keep on growing with it. So you can have up to 6.5 million aggregate with the SBA 504. So just think about that. You could really scale big. Now, if you're too big, if you're Elon Musk, you're too big, you can't qualify for SBA. But your tangible net worth has to be less than $15 million. And I know people that have like $40 million in real estate, but they actually look at the tangible net worth. So you have to be pretty significant not to be able to qualify for SBA. We're doing airplane hangars at an airport, and they don't own the land, so that's SBA financeable. Bowling alleys, all different stuff, guys. So it's a very good tool. I hope you guys got a lot out of this call. It's a little different. I should probably figure ways to do this so it's more interactive. But anyway, I hope I didn't ramble on too much. Got a lot of lending knowledge here, and sometimes it's hard to get it out to everybody. But hope you enjoyed this Thrive meetup. I hope you go and join the meetup page and come to the future events. And also, guys, do me a huge favor. If you go to investorfinancing.tv, it takes you to my YouTube channel. And I talk about all this kind of stuff. I talk about rental financing, fix and flip financing. I talk about USDA loans, like B&I loans. I talk about SBA loans. I interview really cool people in real estate and business entrepreneur. I just interviewed a guy the other day, and he teaches communication skills, which was a really cool interview. We have over 600 episodes on our YouTube channel. So if you go to investorfinancing.tv and subscribe, that'd be a big help too. You can also download on Libsyn or iTunes and listen to the audio, but I mostly focus on the YouTube. So that's good. And then we have a Facebook group, which I kind of let die for a while, but we do have 17,000 people in there. It's facebook.com/real estate investing club. And you can go there, and I'll try to be more productive in there. But anyway, I hope I provided value for you guys this evening, wherever you're at. I know we have some people from Hawaii. We have people from Virginia. If Lori's still listening, we got to get Lori on the show. She's got like 100 units, maybe more. Who knows? But she's in Virginia, and she has a great story, because I remember her years ago, and she was like, at that time, she might have had like 30 units, and just watching her grow, and she's doing all sorts of big flips too. But she would go and buy portfolios of houses, like 15 houses at a time, from burnt out landlords and landlords that are retiring. So she would be a great guest to get on the show. Hopefully she'll join us. And I have other people that I want to bring on that have really good skill sets. I have a lot of really seasoned business owners and real estate investors as colleagues and friends. So it's kind of cool. And I'd love to share them with all y'all here. Cause I think you learn a lot from people doing this, like even bringing somebody on that's looking for business acquisition, what they're looking for to acquire a business. They're looking for businesses that have discretionary income of X, that are, doing X amount in gross revenue, that are in a service-based industry, right? Those conversations that we can get on. And that's what I'm trying to do on the podcast too. If you get a chance to, like, sometimes I'll just talk about specific stuff. And I also do a Q&A. If you go to investorfinancingpodcast.com/ask, you can ask questions, and I answer them on the podcast or the YouTube show. But I also like interviewing people, because I do it in a selfish way. That's another reason why anybody out there, if you want, you should definitely start a podcast. Because you learn, because you ask questions that you're curious about. So like, I'll just interview people on communicate, like this guy in communication. And I just like ask, like, okay, like, how am I going to practice to be a better communicator? And just listening and learning, and just learning from really experienced people. That's the best way of doing it. You can't open books and learn like what you can learn from interviewing somebody on a podcast. So highly recommend starting a podcast. That's why you want to be at the event. February 8th, we're going to talk about all this kind of stuff too. So that's the other stuff. I like the market. So I'm going to bring marketing people in and all that stuff. So everything I'm interested in, I hope to talk about. I hope you're interested in. Anyways, guys, I don't want to keep on rambling on. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode. What is your URL? I think you said investor finance. You're close. It's investorfinancing.tv. Investor financing, ING. Investorfinancing.tv. Yeah. And then if you want to book an appointment with me, you can go to bookwithbeau.com. And I'm happy to, even if you don't have a deal right now, but you need some help, even though from my YouTube channel, I don't know, I probably have like 900 people book calls in the last 2 years, maybe more. But it's amazing that like people like don't come to the appointment. It's crazy, right? Like they book a call like 2 days, right? And then like I send them a Zoom link and they don't come. But I'd say about 20%, right? 20%. So like we had like 80 people RSVP, right? And you're always like on a live event. You're always, if you have 100 people that RSVP, you're going to get about 25 to 30% of those people that actually show up. So everything is a numbers game. All right, guys. Same thing with making offers, right? You have to make offers. If you're trying to buy real estate, you got to make lots of offers. Right now is a good time to be making great aggressive offers. Alex, link to the book, go to investorfinancingpodcast.com. The book's on the front page, investorfinancingpodcast.com. It's on the front page. And you know where to find me too. But anyways, everyone, thanks so much for coming, and I hope to see you more often on these virtual events and in person at some point. Mahalo, as my Hawaiian friends say. Mahalo. See you guys later. Thanks so much. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.